After talking about Juwan, right, we're going to talk about probably the most versatile hero probably currently in this game. We're going to be talking about Peter the First. Um, Peter is going to not put up the damage numbers that you might think that, like, looking at his ability on face value, you're going to be thinking that like, oh, he might be, like, his ability sounds great on paper, he might be doing a lot of damage. It's not so much as that. He just provides a lot of versatility reading his ability. He has a 100% activation rate. At the start of his round, he's going to be able to proc off so many CC abilities, and then it decreases to 85%. So in turn 2, we're at 85% chance of activation rate. So it's just it's just Peter at face value is just so strong because at any level he's able to provide a consistent amount of control effects at the start of the round to get people like Richard, to get people like Charlemagne off the ground. It's just, he is without a doubt the best support damage dealing. It's just they combined it all into one for one hero. He is the best Yi Sun Sin you could ask for. He really is. And it's just, you take Yi Sun Sin and you scale it up to his ability doing 100% activation rate and doing damage, right? That's what you get. So, simple S tier. He's going to scale. He's going to be here forever. There's no need to worry about it. He is S tier, well deserving, 100% activation rate. Scales a little bit down as the game goes on, as the rounds go on, but very good. Talking about Hannibal, this is a very tough pick. It's just, his ability, it's very great. It's just, he does not, it's just, he struggles because it takes a lot of abilities, very specific abilities, to make him work. He requires expensive abilities to make it work. He requires expensive cards like Caesar or like Cleopatra or like another taunting. He just requires so many resources to make it work. Now, whenever you get him working, he's possibly one of the best teams in the game. Right? Knights of the Round Table, if you get it, if Scorpion Counter and Order of the Assassins is your setup, right? He's putting out numbers that are unimaginable. It's just whenever you get it working, it's fantastic. But the amount of resources to get there is the problem. And I do want to take that into account, right? That in order to make Hannibal work, it requires an expensive setup. And it's just, we're seeing extremely high damage numbers from him, right? If he doesn't take damage, doesn't do an assault ability, doesn't do an active, right? He can get like 200 strength per round. It's insane damage. It really is. And I do think that he will scale into further seasons. There will be abilities that come out other than just Knights of the Round Table, Scorpion Counter, or the Assassins that will make him work fantastically. But right now, I will say, especially in Season 1, right? Because we're talking about Season 1, right? We're talking about you having the best of the best abilities, making this person work, and then getting the best team. I think we can comfortably put him in the A tier right now. And maybe in the future seasons, we'll see some S skills come out that will do very well on him. But I think right now, he just requires a lot of resources to make work. He requires Caesar, and he also requires like an Alexander, a Constantine, or an Hellman to make work right now. So we're gonna comfortably put him in the A tier right now, and we'll see how the future seasons work for him. Mary Tudor, I know everyone has good vibes about her. I mean, there is just, this is the homie girl. This is the girl next door, without a doubt. I mean, she is like just, I mean, you could take her home to your parents kind of woman, and just, there's nothing bad about this card. I mean, she applies a simple burn effect. She has a good activation rate. You get her at the start. She's a 5 card. I think we have all 5-starred her like right away. She has great scalability. There's nothing that you can really nag about this card. And even still, we have all debated about whenever we get Theodora, right? Are we really going to swap out Mary for this? Because are you really about to then put legendary statues on Theodora versus using your epics on Mary, and then using your legendaries on Leonidas or even Juwan or Oda or anyone else, any other team, right? You can use epics on Mary and make her even more viable with the additional stat points. What are y'all opinions there?
I mean, personally, like, I definitely, now that I've used Theodora most of this season, I think Mary Tudor is more useful and more viable for the burn team. Um, More so because, like, on paper, like, the buff sounds great, buff an ally from Theodora, but you're still doing a coin toss on who it's going to land on when she casts the buff. And with most burn teams, your main damage dealer is your chief, so you only need the buff to your chief. You don't care if the buff lands on Theodora. You really don't care if it lands on your tank or your healer, whoever your third support is. And so, like, whereas Mary Tudor is just straight more damage. So why not just bring in extra damage instead of trying to hope you might get a little bit of a buff added to your damage dealer?
Exactly. So we're gonna comfortably put Mary right now, and I think she will probably permanently stay in the A tier for an extremely long time. Very good activation rate. She pairs well. King of War. You can throw everything on this woman, and she'll dish out the damage. Um, highly recommend investing in her in season 1 for the seasons to come. So, moving on from her, though, we've probably got some controversial picks, right? We've got y'all see the B tier. It's not filled up just yet. Not really by design, but so we're gonna be talking about Harold. Now, Harold, he can do a lot of damage, just like a lot of the other assault people, but his requirement is a bit specific in that it has to target the chief. And I hate to say it like this, I wish everyone would just target the chief, right? I wish everyone would just target the chief, but his ability has an added on effect where if it targets the chief, it just does a little bit more damage. So it's just, whenever you compare him to likes of Frederick and Saladin, it's just, I see a little bit less potential in him for the future seasons. It is 3 attacks, don't get me wrong. It is 3 attacks. I do also not like how, and this is just, it's a little bit specific, but I'm looking at scalability here. He is not S in Cavalry. What that does mean is whenever you start to build up your equipment, and I've always thought about this, whenever I start to build up my equipment, and I get the Mamelukes, the camels, right? Whenever they all start riding camels into battle, and they all start to get better, why would I not want to use Saladin and Frederick over Harold in that instance? Right. So I see a little bit less potential there whenever the future seasons come. And not to mention 2 right now, I just don't see the damage potential even on the assault team that I'm using with Harold. So I think we can all comfortably put Harold in the B tier right now. We'll see how the future seasons shape him, but I think right now I do think that the B tier is pretty safe for him. Talking about probably, I would say besides Hannibal, this was our probably most talked about pick, is Zhang. Without a doubt, this has been the most talked about person probably that we have talked about ever in just in general, because it's just he's a command user, right? And we have always preached command users, but his damage is just it's not really there, and it's only for 2 turns. It's only for 2 turns, and it is not a lot. It is not a lot of damage, and it's not really a lot of healing either. And the reason why people might scale him up higher on this tier list is because, well, he's there upwards with the likes of Richard and Peter on the same team. Well, number one, he's not even S in spears. Why they did not make him Acid Spears and made it a recommended team is beyond me. So that is probably one of my number one gripes is why did they not make Zhang Essence Spears is beyond me. I why they did that, I do not know. It has bothered me to no end why he is not. But I digress. Fellow viewers. He can be simply replaced with Hades Prelude. Just right off of that, because it's just, you can just simply replace not having Zhang with getting Hades Prelude and putting that on Richard. And then
and yet he really exists to provide another source of panic for Richard to tee up on with Roman Scorpion Ballista. And so, he's, yeah, I particularly have a really big beef with him because that's really his synergy there in providing that. And that really goes for anybody that's really, if you don't have Richard and you're trying to use somebody else, that with Terror Barrier Mounts and Roman Scorpion Ballista to try to get that panic synergy. That's the only reason why he's on the team. He doesn't provide a lot of healing. He doesn't provide a lot of damage. He's just there to inflict panic. So as soon as you get something like Hades Prelude, or maybe they're going to come out with another hero in season 2 that's going to inflict panic, he's going to quickly be replaced. So for like right now, he's what is he at? B tier? Yeah, I mean he sits very comfortably in B tier simply because of the synergy that he has with the other with Panic in general. Yeah. But personally, he's going to be much lower on my list once I find somebody to replace him with. He will be much lower.
Yeah, I think that he'll just see. I mean, not mention too. We're talking about Hades Prelude. We're talking about a Panic ability. We're talking about 3 of the best S tier heroes possibly being put together in the future seasons, in season 2 for instance. So he just doesn't have a lot of scalability in the late game in future seasons to come as well. So let's talk about Hellman. Absolutely fantastic card. It's just he doesn't have, I think my biggest gripe with him is that his second modifier, like whenever you take Alexander, whenever you take Constantine, they have great second additions to their abilities rather than just taunting. Hellman's modifier is just adding very minimal defense and taking very minimal defense away. It's almost negligible that it's even there. If that was just a percentage, instead of just a base number, it would work fantastically. I think that he would be right there with Hellman, or right there with Constantine and Alexander. It's just, y'all saw me talk about him. He's fantastic. He's just going to be placed very comfortably in the B tier right now. So, Taunt Tank user, fantastic. Great starting hero right now in Season 1. Highly recommend investing in him along with Yi Sun Sun. Now,
if you did not start Yi Sun and you wanted to go somewhere else, I would recommend going with Hellman as your starter. He's very solid.
My only beef with him is just the chance on the taunt is only 50%.
Yeah.
That's like Constantine is 60 and Alexander is 75.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. Now, Pantheon, you gotta tell us about Hojo.
Hojo, my boy. You were ragging on me when I told you that Hojo could do good. And here we are at the end of the season, and you're getting slapped around by some Hojo teams.
Oh, yeah, that's me. Yeah, absolutely. I was a mad hater on Hojo, for sure.
Yeah, so to enlighten everyone, Hojo is one of the lower cost heroes. He's only, a 4 cost?
Mm-hmm.
Or 5 cost? 4 cost hero. So he's not built like a powerhouse, but the interesting thing about him is that his main skill is it increases his strength, but it also increases his damage taken, and so obviously he's built glass cannon style, but it at maxed out it's 118 strength, which is no laughing matter, especially for a 4 cost hero whose strength gain is still pretty high, like 2.53 a level, which is on par with some of the 5 and 6 and even 7 costs, like Guan Yu's is 2.74. just to throw numbers out there. But like overall, like because he's also epic hero, you get loads of those badges that you can upgrade Hojo's star level up quite easily. Same with like Yi Sun and Hellman. And when you get him up to the 5 stars, like you're getting an extra 50 stats as well there too.
Mm-hmm.
And like the damage you're starting to see when you really commit to Hojo, it can rival that of the other main damage dealers in the game. Especially if you were to say slot him in place of Hannibal in the Hannibal team, or give him the Hades Prelude Scorpion Ballista combo and pair him with Ying. There's a lot more possibilities just because he's not reliant on anything else. He's just straight self buff. So you can really, he's really flexible in that sense that you just need to protect him and let him do his damage. And he can go wild if you really, really pump the stats into him.
Yeah. Oh, after seeing a couple of the battle reports and seeing what a lot of people had to do, I had to suck up my pride and say that Hojo was viable. So, with all that being said, though, we will comfortably put him in the B tier right now. I do think he is scaling well right now into the meta, especially with a lot of the abilities you can get your hands on. He has a lot of versatility with like what Pantheon was saying and a couple of the different teams that you can place him in. So I think he has a lot of things going for him currently, and so I think we'll definitely look forward to seeing what he can do, especially in future seasons. Now, I think besides Zhang, I think this is probably the second most guy that we've talked about is the guy with the gun, and this is we just. I mean, I thought this guy was the best thing since sliced bread when I first saw him. I said, a support assault user? I mean, are you kidding me? And then I was like, you know what? He does nothing else other than provide a very high strength, right? 70? He provides 70 strength at max stat, and he does 500% damage. It's nuts. But the problem that you run into is that's it. There's no other support. There's no healing. There's no damage reduction. There's no CC. There's no control. It's just you run into with just having so much damage that you die. Like, what? There's no teams, right? You don't go into playing League of Legends and you don't all pick AD carry. You don't all go in and you don't all get rocket launchers in every game that you play. You have to have.
It's not gonna go well.
You can't do all damage. It doesn't work like that. So it's just. I wish he would just be a little bit tweaked and provide a little bit of synergy, right? If he did a buff like he provided immunity to some CC effects, if he provided some healing, if he did some damage over time, or I should say some like just nice. If he had like a Spartan Rampart added onto his main ability, like changed around instead of the strength, if he provided like a resistant, I mean, he would be stellar. I struggle seeing. I see him being used a little bit. So we're gonna comfortably put him though in the C tier. I know it sucks to put a 6-star person, especially the one that you get from the season pass. I know I'm crying a tear. In the C tier, I wanted him to be good. I hope he gets a little bit of a rework and he becomes fantastic. So, moving on to my favorite person in the game, Ivan. He is just absolutely terrible. It's just, a lot of the tactical users, as we saw, it's just they have no versatility, right? We were talking about a lot of the other free-to-play users that you get awakened at the start, right? These are people that you get awakened, you get useful in the start. He just does some damage, and then he can proc his ability again. It's just doesn't have a whole lot of usefulness. It doesn't apply any control effects. He doesn't synergize with anyone. So
very lackluster. Very lackluster. There's other people that do his job much better than he is. Whatever he's doing and able to offer bonuses like CC effects or just better damage overall. But,
exactly.
Fun fact, his name in game is actually Ivan the Terrible. So, yeah, he's terrible.
And he's going to be terrible in the D tier. So, moving on now to Ivan's counterpart, I should say part of the triangle of terribleness, is Juan Joanne the Arc. I don't know. Just the French baguette. And we're talking about her, and Juwan does almost the exact same thing Ivan does, but she has like I think a 40% chance or a 30% chance to just do it, right? She has like a just another. She can just do her ability again or do some additional tactical damage that just doesn't scale well. No CC, no healing, no just anything else, just some tactical damage. She's gonna be right there with Ivan in the D tier. Unfortunately, Scipio, or no, sorry, Leonidas. I remember whenever I first saw him, I was like, man, this is the second guy since sliced bread.
This is it.
This is
right
just I found him. I found. You know,
What a starter hero, and he's only $1.
you know, I really was hoping that he was going to turn out a little bit better. He really is just slightly beneath Juwan. I want to stress that. Just a little bit of change, a little bit of tweak, and we can see Leonidas pop off just there with Juwan. He's gonna sit there comfortably in the B tier. I think he's a fine starter hero. It's just, Leonidas can't really bag that Mary Tutor just yet. He can't really get up to that level of utility. So he doesn't really scale well into the late game. That is definitely probably my biggest gripe. He's already losing ground to Juwan in Season 1 this hard. On just bare bones, he's already losing ground as the same card. Basically doing the same thing. You can't put Leonidas and Juwan on the same team. So we're already seeing that. It's just he's already in B tier. He will probably scale even lower in the future things. So Lee Shamu, or just Lee, I'll just call him Lee. One of the definitely better starter heroes. And what we want to talk about here is he has an active user that applies silence and a little bit of damage. He is half of Peter, basically. So, he applies a little bit of CC, and he applies a little bit of damage, and he can apply an additional effect on his, basically, if they are already underneath a control effect, he applies an additional effect. He has a good versatility, he scales a little bit later, and he scales well with the current meta of being active users that, if you're looking, Peter, Charlemagne, Yi Sun Sin, Juwan, Mary Tutor, he fights well against them because he applies silence. This is the reason why we did not recommend Boadicea at the start, is because disarm is not as useful as it is versus countering the active teams that are currently out there. So, with that being said, I can comfortably put Lee right there at the B tier. I think he's fine. I think he's definitely... He scales fine right now. We might see him scale down later on to the seasons as they go on. But I think right now he's comfortable in Season 1 being right there at that B tier. But he does lose some of that scalability in the future seasons. So, Pachu. Mr. Pachu. Basically just an active Caesar, but kind of worse. I really think Pachu should have been a 5-star. That might be controversial, but I hate to put a 6-star hero on the same playing field as Caesar with this. I feel like the healing is not as consistent. It's a little bit more of a variable. It's just, I feel like the healing should have been scaled a little bit further up and then maybe applied some additional effects on top of it to compete with Caesar, right? I know, Pantheon, you've been using him a lot. What have you seen with him?
Like, he's not bad. It's just exactly that. It's an active skill, so it can be silenced, first of all. And second of all, if you get into the nitty-gritty of it, having it be an active skill changes the order that these skills are casting in. So things like the Balkan Shield build, where you're spamming resistant shields and you're spamming heals and everything procs off each other to basically give you endless invulnerability, it doesn't work as well with Pachu because he's casting his active skill in the middle of the chain instead of at the beginning like Caesar would.
Exactly.
So it really messes with your build sometimes is my main issue with that, trying to use him. But overall, like, he's okay. It's just very hit and miss because you are a 40% chance to even cast the spell in the first place.
Yeah. I do think his saving grace is Iron Buddha. I do think that's probably one of the things that might make him work. Is getting that activation rate up a little bit. But that's a very niche thing that you might be able to pull off. So, with that being said, we're going to comfortably put him in the B tier. El Cid is kind of like diving in though to El Cid. We do want to talk about him, and it's just at the start he's basically functioning like a lesser Leonidas. He doesn't synergize well. He doesn't really provide a whole lot of utility outside of just applying those effects off of what Mary's going to be proccing at the start. He just doesn't scale well. Doesn't really have a whole lot of utility. I would just right now definitely D tier. He doesn't have a lot of scalability, and it's just he's not going to work well in the future seasons to come. So I think we're fine placing him in the D tier. It's just and
with
then
so many people on the burn teams as well, we're really not going to be missing El Cid.
Yeah.
With how many people have burn synergy as well. So it's another thing to consider.
Talking about Pericles, he suffers a lot from a lot of the other tactical users on this tier list that they suffer from. It's just scalability, and he just doesn't offer a whole lot about what the other support and tactical damage users are going to offer. It's just that's his biggest thing, is that it's just he doesn't scale well. He doesn't provide a whole lot of utility. It's just he falls into that normal group of just uneventful support / tactical damage users right now, and just we'll just follow suit. Unfortunately, in the D tier right now. I hope that they rework some of these tactical users and they bring them a little bit up to usage. So Queen Seanock, absolutely fantastic. I really like using her after using her for a while. I think she provides a lot of utility. I think that she has very great scalability into the future seasons to come. I think that she is built very well. I think that she provides just anyone that uses actives, she provides a means for them to even scale up even better, providing a base damage reduction, providing immunity to CC. Just so much utility off this one hero that can't really be matched anywhere else. Comfortably, without a doubt, A tier. I would see this character being moved up to S without a doubt, so long as I think that as the teams develop right, I think we will see her being used more often. I think we'll see her becoming a little bit more unstoppable. So I think right now we can comfortably put her in the A tier, and in the future seasons to come, I think we might even see her scaling up with more teams to come and scaling maybe even into the S tier. Ragnar, just a lot like how Babers is. It's just a little bit more damage. How it's applied is a little bit different. And I'll just kind of talk about Scipio and Ragnar at the same time. Scipio, in my opinion, does apply a little bit more utility. He does apply some control effects, but what they suffer from is, unlike the control teams, they don't proc off of that. The control teams don't really proc off of them having control effects applied. So you're stuck with applying control effects, but it doesn't really mean much. You don't synergize well with doing damage based off of that with other assault abilities. So Ragnar and Scipio, unfortunately, we will put both in the C tier for the very similar reasons. Tachibana, she does what Ivan and exactly what Juwan do. She does tactical damage, and she applies one additional effect, which she applies dodge to her commander at a very low percentile. It's only, I think, 10% at max. And
it's 10% at max.
It's 10% at max. It's just, there's not enough meat on the bone at 10%. If it was 20%, I would consider it, but 10%, I mean, that's just such a random guesswork.
And it's also only for one round too, so
yes.
It's not something that for a 40% chance, it's only 10%. It's not a lot to go on there.
And there's not enough skills that also add dodge. I think there's one other skill that I've seen that can add dodge or chance. Like you can't even make a build out of it.
So we're gonna completely put her in the D tier along with Ivan, Juwan, and all the other fantastic heroes. So, Theodora, um, Theodora, as we've talked about her, it's just she's also been debated as well. You cannot put Mary and Theodora on the same playing level, but you also can't sit there and tell me that she's also terrible because she's not able to compete with Mary. Mary is just that good that I just don't think a lot of people are catching on to, that Mary is just that good. Theodora is also able to apply additional damage. She also has a lot of good support utility with that bonus damage. It's just there's with the burn team, there's just so many people fighting for those slots. It makes it that competitive. So we're gonna comfortably put Theodora in the B tier for currently. Now, talk about what you guys are all here for. Zooge. Zooge is the newest hero that has entered the game. I don't have him. As y'all can see, he's purple because I don't have him. Now, I do know Pantheon has been doing a lot of testing with this man. So, what do you have for us for Zooge, Pantheon?
Like the effect is cool and it's interesting. The hardest thing though is actually trying to come up with a use that actually feels like you're putting him to good use. And like I've been still testing a bunch of different ideas to try and figure out something. And like some of the other ideas I don't have the heroes or the skills to actually do a test with. But it kind of seems like your best use of him is more of like a command supporting hero who also buffs your main damage dealer. So like in a burn team, he seems to fit okay nicely, and also in an assault team. And right now I have him with my assault team because the nice perk is that actually when you get like a good counter for the assault teams is stat steal. Like the Richard team stealing all the stats and Penumbral Pendulum stealing all your stats on basic attacks really hurts you as an assault team. And with Zooge, you reapply your attack buff before you deal damage with every assault skill. And so you're basically counteracting your stats being reduced by pumping them back up and then dropping them back down constantly. And so that's so far been my best case using him. Any other time, I've found that either A, I'm buffing up the attacker's damage already too high to a point that the buff from Zooge is actually not applying, or to the point where Zooge's intelligence just isn't high enough to really make a difference anyways to the attack buff that they're getting.
I really feel like he's going to function well with a tank as the commander. You know, like it's just he has such a weird build that will make him work eventually, right? Like he's one of those cards that's just I know someone's going to figure out the best team to make him use in, right? You know, it might be Toussaint and Zooge, you know, pulling something out of left field together with Harold. We don't know just yet. So, with all that being said though, his versatility, where would you place him at, Pantheon? Where would you like to place him at?
I think he's still A. I think he's still A tier. Like he's still a very high stat intelligence hero. So you can still place him in a lot of different teams, and he's still going to be helpful. Like either he's going to buff your damage dealer so that they do more damage, because almost no one in the game has higher base stat gain than that.
He does like a 3.4, I believe?
Yeah, it's 3.3 or 3.4, which is huge. And so like at the higher end of the game, when you're at level 45 to 50, you'll start to actually see the buff make a difference. Mm-hmm. But I think because of that, he could be an A tier. And I think it's just he's not higher than A tier because he doesn't have like a solidified build that really makes him shine that anyone's found yet. It's just he's just good for a bit of a buff, and that's it.
So, let us talk about Cleopatra. Now, Cleopatra is a support healer a lot like Caesar and a lot like Pachu. Now, the caveat is that she heals at certain levels of whenever your heroes drop to. Right now, it's 70, 50, 30. She did receive a buff in the Golden Freedom update. This is after adjusting for her upgrades now, basically. And what she does, she takes stats away, strength and intelligence, from the person that basically did the damage to them to get them that low. one thing that I do like about her now being upgraded is she has a lot more versatility now with several different skills like Bohemian War Wagon, uh, Reservist Mobilization is one of them. I believe that she functions a lot like just another Caesar, which we do need. We needed another Caesar-like figure because Caesar can't be placed on 5 teams. I believe that this opens up a lot more doors to a lot more teams. And I think now in Season 2 and above, we will start seeing more Cleopatras now utilizing as a support hero. So, with all that being said, I think she justifies now for being an A-tier hero. With before, it was just 70%, without a doubt, B or C. Without a doubt, this newest upgrade kicked her into the A tier. I think that you have a lot more healing going on than what was originally done, which was the 70, just the one time at 70%. But now with her being healing at 70, 50, and 30, I believe she has a lot more versatility because she's going to be able to kick your team up into a lot more of a safe space. So that's my reason for justification about putting her in the A tier. Now, diving into Oda, this one I have a little bit of a tough time with, and you'll kind of have to hear me out on the skills, a lot like Hannibal. I believe that Oda, similarly to how Hannibal operates, he is limited by the skills needed to make him work as a support damage dealer, a lot like Peter. He functions just like Peter in the fact that he needs to be the one that applies the burn. He's able to apply the burn with high activation rate actives. So long as he has those going for him, he will be able to pump out significant, number one, either damage or burn procs. I've seen 2 different builds with him. Right now, he is actually the chief, and he is running King of War and Nika Riot's very interesting build. I do think that has a lot of interestingness to it, obviously. It is kind of contingent on you, Oda, doing essentially everything and rolling on King of War and Nika Riot's going off. I think for the consistent part, which most people will be using him in, he will be used as the support for Jawan, making sure that the flames get procced. So long as you have King of War, he is an easy S tier hero, but you are completely reliant on King of War for making him an S tier. And a lot like Hannibal, he requires that Knights of the Round Table to be able to take high level tiles, compared to a lot of the other ones that don't necessarily need it as much. So with all that being said, we'll comfortably put him in the A tier. I believe that he'll stay always as an A to almost S tier hero. There's not much. King of War is just, it's one of those triple S skills that is really needed. It makes Oda who he is. So with all that being said, we'll keep Oda in the A tier for now. And then later on, as the seasons go on, I believe that he will stay impactful always. A lot like the other AT heroes that you see on this list, they are all very viable into every season right now, either whether in Season 1, the first campaign, or in Golden Freedom. So, that wraps up our list for Season 1, between the first campaign and the Golden Freedom. That is our tier list. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far. I know it was a long video and a lot to get through. If you pretty much just wanted to skip to the end, I don't blame you. It's a lot of content to definitely sift through, and we do go in depth about a lot of the heroes that we did. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more, and as always, take it easy.